Hi, welcome to How to Beat Movies, and in this video, I will tell you the story of this movie called Contact, released in 1997. Ellie lost her mother when she was very young, and her father took care of her ever since. Even when a little child, Ellie developed an interest in astronomy, and she would always listen to the radio. Her dream was to communicate with an alien civilization. Ellie's father passed away when she was just 9 years old. Years later, the protagonist became a scientist tasked with leading the search for extraterrestrial intelligence (SETI) program at the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. However, she faced setbacks as the project she was involved in was ultimately terminated. Nevertheless, the scientist was determined not to give up on her lifelong goal. She began seeking investors to fund her research, but none showed much interest. Until a mysterious rich man agreed to invest the necessary funds. This benefactor, however, never communicated with Ellie personally. For years later, Ellie transferred her research work to the Very Large Array, but received no significant signals. In addition to this, some years prior, Ellie had fallen in love with a man named Joss. Unlike Ellie, he believed in the existence of God and held a master's degree in theology. The two had a good relationship, but as Ellie faced career challenges, she ended her relationship with Joss. One night, the scientist heard weird noises. Excited, she called the entire team to investigate the signal. They discovered that the signal was coming from Vega, located 26 light-years from Earth. Deciphering the signal, they obtained a series of numbers. Although they had no idea of the meaning, the discovery was announced in the press. The next day, various government agency delegations arrived at the station to investigate the situation. Ellie shared her thoughts that the aliens chose to send numbers because numbers are the language of the universe. She thought that these numbers might not have a specific meaning, but were more like a way of indicating that a new message was coming. Eventually, a second message was received, this time in the form of an image. They connected it to a television and saw Adolf H.'s speech. It was the opening ceremony of the 1936 Summer Olympics in Berlin. This scared some people, as they believed that the alien sending this kind of message indicated evil intentions. However, Ellie had a different theory. She explained that the 1936 Olympic broadcast was the first television signal sent into space. It took several decades to reach Vega and several more decades to be sent back to Earth. This message likely indicated that they had received the earthly transmission. They were unaware of the terrible context that message had for humans, so sending it was not a threat or anything like that. Shortly after, Ellie's team discovered something else. The original video had only 25 frames per second, but what was sent from Vega had 50 frames. The extra part was extracted and contained over 63,000 pages of data. However, it was encrypted, and no one could decipher it. Overnight, news of aliens sending signals to Earth went viral and had a significant impact on society. Debates among scientists and theologians began about the discovery, and Ellie's workplace, the Very Large Array, was crowded with visitors, most of whom were merely curious. Among them, there was a cult spreading hateful and alarmist messages. Ellie had mixed emotions upon seeing them. For her, it was urgent to decipher the alien data. Finally, the protagonist received a mysterious message from the magnate. A meeting was arranged for midnight on the private jet subject. When they finally met, the man told the scientist that he would soon die. However, before his life ended, he wanted to do something great for the world. Therefore, he extracted the alien data from Ellie's lab and found a solution for them. The data seemed to be plans, but the Vega civilization had a multidimensional perspective. Therefore, they needed to merge the existing data into a 3D model. Apparently, the Vega aliens wanted to teach humanity how to build a gigantic machine. However, their purpose remained unknown. The government leader couldn't decide whether to proceed with the construction, as it could pose a threat to humans. Ellie once again had to deal with politicians to convince them to proceed with the construction. Among the presents was her ex-boyfriend Joss. Joss had become a priest and maintained a close relationship with the president. When their paths crossed again, they rekindled their relationship. Vega's third message arrived, featuring a man in a frame. Combining this with the previous messages, they understood that the aliens wanted them to build a means of transportation and send a human to Vega. The president decided to proceed with the plan. Scholars were chosen to study the alien technology, and 10 candidates were pre-selected for the journey. Ellie was one of them. Joss tried to convince her to give up because he was afraid of what might happen. According to the data, the person who went to Vega and returned would have aged only 4 years, while on Earth, more than 50 years would have passed. In other words, anyone who accepted this journey would likely have lost loved ones and would encounter a different world upon return. Moreover, the mission itself was extremely risky. Ellie knew that, but was determined to move forward. A few days later, the 10 candidates were interviewed by national representatives, and the entire process was broadcast live to the world. Ellie was the most popular candidate because she had discovered the Vega signal. But Joss asks a detrimental question during one of the hearings, inquiring about her belief in God. Ellie maintains her composure and responds carefully that, as a scientist, she places great importance on evidence. Up to this point, there is no evidence to prove or refute the existence of God. People and politicians do not view Ellie's perspective favorably, so they give the spot to another scientist who presents himself as a devout believer. The reason Joss disrupted Ellie is because he liked her and didn't want her to go on the mission. After some time, the alien's machine is finally constructed. Thousands of people gather to witness the launch. However, a problem arises when the leader of a radical cult infiltrates the operation to sabotage it. The man plants explosives that destroy the machine, and the scientist slated for the mission, along with many other employees, dies in the explosion. Ellie returns home, extremely saddened by what has happened. But a twist occurs at the critical moment. Ellie receives a video call from 2 Russian astronauts, with the magnate aboard their spacecraft. The benefactor has cancer, and not much time left. Therefore, he informs Ellie that a second spacecraft, following alien instructions, was secretly constructed. He wants Ellie to go on this mission. To avoid any problems, they have reinforced security measures and prohibited the public from watching the launch. Finally, Ellie fastens her seatbelt and prepares to depart. During the countdown, the cabin starts shaking violently, and a strange light appears. Ellie tries to communicate with the Mission Control Center, but without success. At launch, the auxiliary structure is released first, and 2 booster rockets are fired, spinning the ring at high speed. The light is so intense that it cannot be seen with the naked eye. When the countdown reaches 10, the light becomes brighter. It releases an enormous amount of energy. The structure Ellie is in enters a kind of wormhole. Although she can no longer communicate with the mission control, she records video throughout her extraordinary journey. The protagonist travels through space at an incredible speed thanks to the wormhole. Finally, she sees an extraordinary image of a galaxy. Suddenly, Ellie finds herself on a beach. The stars shine brightly above her. Although they seem so close, she cannot touch them with her hands. The scientist notices someone approaching her. Ellie is very nervous at first, but as the man gets closer, she recognizes him as her father. Ellie embraces him. She can't believe what's happening. In fact, she thinks it might all be a hallucination. For a moment, she thinks she must have blacked out on the way to Vega. But here's what's happening. The Vega civilization used Ellie's brain to create this visual representation of her memories. The reason the alien appears to her in the form of her father is to make the first contact easier for her. As for the beach, it's just a cherished memory from Ellie's childhood, a day she spent with her father. Ellie has many questions about alien civilizations. She is curious to know who built the wormhole, but the alien tells her that he doesn't know either. According to the creature, the technology and the wormhole existed before the Vega civilization was born. Probably, another more advanced and ancient civilization built all of this. Ellie also wonders if the inhabitants of Vega would invite all other civilizations in the universe to visit them. The alien responds that they have only invited humans because they are still very lonely beings trapped on Earth. The creature holds her hand and says that humans must come together to overcome their empty and meaningless lives. Ellie asks if other people could come to Vega for a trip. The alien replies that this encounter is just the first contact. There will be more in the future. He emphasizes that she must be patient about this. Finally, the alien gives her a farewell kiss, just as Ellie's father would. The scientist still had many questions she wanted to ask, but she was suddenly awakened by very powerful lights. The structure she was in fell into the water. Ellie is still very confused. The Mission Control Center informs her that the launch failed. The scientist says that's not what happened and tries to prove her experience with the recorded video. However, the video shows only static and noise. The mission control team plays their own observation video, and based on that, they claim that Ellie, inside the structure, fell from the launch system. But the scientist argues that, based on the theory of relativity, the 1 second on Earth, which is how long her experience lasted for the observers, was equivalent to the 18 hours she spent in the Vega galaxy. More importantly, she says that she made first contact with the Vega civilization. A debate starts, where those opposed to Ellie claim that the 18 hours she says she spent away from Earth were merely a hallucination that she had. Furthermore, they argue that she cannot prove the existence of the Vega alien. Afterward, people begin to question the authenticity of the radio signal. Some say it was all a trick. Ellie denies such claims, explaining that interdisciplinary knowledge is necessary to encode such a signal, and a satellite is required to send such a signal. However, the official does not believe her words. He mentions that it is very possible that a wealthy man who funded her could create such a sophisticated trick. The official emphasizes that Ellie could have been deceived by the magnate as well. Ellie feels helpless having to endure such an accusation, but ultimately she had no evidence. Still, she insists that her cosmic journey was real, and she hopes that everyone may have the chance to experience it one day. Joss appears and hugs Ellie, who is quite depressed at the moment. Outside, many citizens gather to support her. A journalist asks for Joss's opinion on the matter, and Joss says he believes Ellie's story. Later, we see the official finding the video recording that Ellie made on her own. It consisted of an 18-hour recording of static and noise. That was evidence that she was telling the truth, because it would have been impossible for her to have so many hours recorded when the launch lasted only a fraction of that time. Although there was nothing visible or audible, that was compelling proof that the scientist did indeed travel to Vega. However, this evidence is never exposed to the public, and Ellie is unaware of it. Well guys, that was the movie. I found the story very good, and it does seem quite plausible how human contact with extraterrestrials occurs. The film also relies on various scientific concepts to lend more credibility to the story. It's no wonder considering that the movie is based on a book written by the scientist Carl Sagan. If you are still there, don't forget to hit the thumbs up icon below, subscribe, and leave a comment, so we can bring more great videos for you guys. Thanks for your audience and see you later.